A love that does not discriminate seems to me to forfeit a part of its own value by doing an injustice to its object, and secondly, not all men are worthy of love. Beauty has no obvious use, nor is there any clear cultural necessity for it. Yet civilization could not do without it. The ego is not master in its own house. The behavior of a human being in sexual matters is often a prototype for the whole of his other modes of reaction in life. Anxiety is the feeling we have when we think we are about to die. Dream disfigurement, then, turns out in reality to be an act of the censor. The aim of all life is death. Where questions of religion are concerned, people are guilty of every possible sort of dishonesty and intellectual misdemeanor. When a love relationship is at its height, there is no room left for any interest in the environment. A pair of lovers are sufficient to themselves. Smoking is indispensable if one has nothing to kiss. The intention that man should be happy is not in the plan of creation. Words and magic were in the beginning one and the same thing, and even today words retain much of their magical power. The virtuous man contents himself with dreaming that which the wicked man does in actual life. A woman should soften but not weaken a man. The functional importance of the ego is manifested in the fact that normally control over the approaches to motility devolves upon it. A civilization which leaves so large a number of its participants unsatisfied and drives them into revolt neither has nor deserves the prospect of a lasting existence. Civilized society is perpetually menaced with disintegration through this primary hostility of men towards one another. The pleasure of satisfying a savage instinct, undomesticated by the ego, is incomparably much more intense than the one of satisfying a tamed instinct. Unexpressed emotions will never die, they are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. Every normal person, in fact, is only normal on the average. His ego approximates to that of the psychotic in some part or other and to a greater or lesser extent. Analysis does not set out to make pathological reactions impossible, but to give the patient's ego freedom to decide one way or another. It is that we are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love, never so helplessly unhappy as when we have lost our loved object or its love. The creative writer does the same as the child at play. He creates a world of fantasy which he takes very seriously, because they drink its streams which we have not yet made accessible to science. No one who, like me, conjures up the evilest of those half-tamed demons that inhabit the human breast and seeks to wrestle with them, can expect to come through the struggle unscathed. A religion, even if it calls itself a religion of love, must be hard and unloving to those who do not belong to it. The only person with whom you have to compare yourself is you in the past. Loneliness and darkness have just robbed me of my valuables. We are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love. In mourning it is the world which has become poor and empty, in melancholia it is the ego itself. The dream is a sort of substitution for those emotional and intellectual trains of thought. Religion is an attempt to get control over the sensory world, in which we are placed, by means of the wish world, which we have developed inside us as a result of biological and psychological necessities. The interpretation of dreams is the royal road to a knowledge of the unconscious activities of the mind. One thing only do I know for certain, and that is that man's judgments of value follow directly his wishes for happiness, that, accordingly, they are an attempt to support his illusions with arguments. The liberty of the individual is no gift of civilization. It was greatest before there was any civilization. We choose not randomly each other, we meet only those who already exist in our subconscious. Life, as we find it, is too hard for us. It brings us too many pains, disappointments, and impossible tasks. In order to bear it, we cannot dispense with palliative measures. There are perhaps 3 such measures: powerful deflections, which cause us to make light of our misery; substitutive satisfactions, which diminish it; and intoxicating substances, which make us insensible to it. The first requisite of civilization is that of justice. What progress we are making! In the Middle Ages, they would have burned me. Now they are content with burning my books. Whoever loves becomes humble. Those who love have, so to speak, pawned a part of their narcissism. The madman is a dreamer awake. Dreams are often most profound when they seem the craziest. The great question that has never been answered, and which I have not yet been able to answer, despite my 30 years of research into the feminine soul, is: what does a woman want? Experience teaches us that the world is not a nursery. He that has eyes to see and ears to hear may convince himself that no mortal can keep a secret if his lips are silent. He chatters with his fingertips. Betrayal oozes out of him at every pore. Human beings are funny. They long to be with the person they love, but refuse to admit it openly. Some are afraid to show even the slightest sign of affection because of fear. Fear that their feelings may not be recognized, or even worse, returned. But one thing about human beings puzzles me the most is their conscious effort to be connected with the object of their affection, even if it kills them slowly within. The more perfect a person is on the outside, the more demons they have on the inside. Just as no one can be forced into belief, so no one can be forced into unbelief. At the height of being in love, the boundary between ego and object threatens to melt away.